And the man, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. Fellas, how we doing today on this 15-game slate?
Pretty good, man. Excited that maybe tonight is the night we finally get a roster Clayton Kershaw because he's just there aren't a lot of guys to choose from, and that'll be kind of like bringing it back to some of the glory days in DFS. 14, 15, back before Ethan Gate, kind of bringing back those good feelings.
Oh, that was a while ago. Adam, what's up, bro?
How's it going, man? Yeah, pretty excited for a slate with like 3 good pitchers on it.
Yeah, 15 games and 3 viable pitchers. It's a lot of fun. Let's dive right into it because we've got a lot of games to talk about. We'll kick it off with the Baltimore Orioles, New York Yankees. Adam, you've got Asher Wojciechowski and, well, it looks like Nestor Cortez is going to be the long guy. Let's start off with some pitching that we're not interested in and talk about this game.
I'm kind of interested in Woj in tournaments.
I had a feeling.
I mean, it's not that I like him. It's not that I think it's a good spot. Even though half the Yankees lineup is on the injured list, this team still has a low strikeout percentage and some pretty decent hitters in there. But the reason that I keep kind of coming back to him is that you have to roster an SP2 on DraftKings, especially. He's not in play for me on FanDuel. He's not even in play on Yahoo because their pitching pricing is a bit different. But on DraftKings, you need an SP2. It's not really viable to pay up at both spots, I don't think. And people are going to go to guys like Chase Anderson, who I also am interested in, Andrew Cashner, Jake Arrieta, just these really questionable arms or questionable matchups that really limit upside. Why not take a chance on a guy who at least has flashed like plus swing and miss stuff? It may have been a mirage, it may not have been, but we know exactly what Arrieta and Anderson and Cashner are. So I'm fine getting into some Wojciechowski in tournaments.
So as far as Wojciechowski goes, I guess we don't have a Yankees lineup yet. No, yeah, we do. LeMahieu, Judge, Gregorius, Torres, Gardner, Maben, Ford, Romine, Mike Tauchman. I mean, it's certainly not the murderer's row of batters that they've ran out there when healthy. Still a pretty scary lineup, though.
Yeah, and an aggregate 21.6% strikeout percentage really isn't very appealing. It's solely just that the mix of SP2 options in that range are basically all guys with very limited ceilings. And so if nobody's going to play the guy that maybe has good strikeout stuff, then I'll get some.
Okay, Alex, how are you approaching this game?
I'm not super fond of Wojciechowski. I mean, the strikeout potential is decent, but just the median projection I have for him, I mean, let me look at the 5-inning line here because that's one thing I like to look at with starters. It's projecting that he's going to, on average, give up 3.9 runs in the first 5 innings. So, I mean, that's a lot of fantasy points. You have to get pretty lucky to get a favorable outcome here. I'm more interested in Cortez. He's gone not very deep in any of the games that he's come in. I think 10, 13, and 15 batters faced in the last 3 games that he was the long reliever. And he pitched like 3 days ago, so I'm not expecting that to change. But there are 2 advantages. One, he is in line to get a win because he's coming in relief, and they just picked that means there's no 5-inning requirement. And it is a decent matchup versus a Baltimore Orioles lineup that is pretty weak. So I think that he should be pretty productive in the pitches he throws.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Adam, in the hitting on this game from either side?
So is it confirmed that Cortez is following in this game? Because I see Steven Tarpley listed on the roster too, and he hasn't pitched at all.
Yeah, I mean,
like last time, or not last time, but
Cortez
there was
pitched on the 3rd.
What'd you say?
Cortez last pitched on the 3rd of August.
Right. Yeah, I just remember that recently we had a game like this where we didn't really get a confirmed guy, and they ended up like splitting it between him and Sessa.
Yeah, I don't know. What I do know is that even if he does come out, I highly doubt it's any more than like 2 or 3 innings from what we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I just didn't know if we had anything saying he was actually like going to pitch today.
I don't see it yet. What are your thoughts on bats from the Yankees side? Obviously, you have some tepid interest in Wojciechowski, but I'm assuming you're not overlooking Yankees bats either.
No, I mean, still like the Yankees bats. Like I said, not a lot of strikeouts here. And Wojciechowski, even this year where he's had the good strikeout stuff, he's still giving up power. It's pretty warm and humid in Baltimore today. The ball should carry really well. And, like we talked about yesterday, even though the Yankees lineup is watered down, it just gives you some cheaper bats that you can get to as well. So I still like the Yankees bats.
All right. Do you want to talk about hitters here, Alex?
Yeah, I think another great spot. It's a little site specific because on FanDuel and Yahoo, the Yankees are very popular. On DraftKings, maybe they're a little bit less popular, but for that reason, I like them the most on DraftKings. And I think you can get a really big edge by picking them. I think there's some good values on the team, particularly Aaron Judge at 4,900, 4.1K on FanDuel and 18 on Yahoo. Really good play, probably a cash game play. And I mean, I love the 7-run total. That's one of the highest you'll see. So the potential is huge.
Okay. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and Milwaukee then. Moving on to game number 2, Chase Anderson, Stephen Brault. Alex, we're going to see a lot of underwhelming pitching options today. There's no doubt about it. This one isn't much different. Brault's very cheap, but that's about all. And I think I mentioned it to you yesterday. Like, these more spacious parks kind of matter less now that so many home runs are being hit. It's not Coors Field, it's not Citizens Bank Park, but I don't know. I mean, you're talking about a game that opened with an over/under of 10 at PNC Park. Imagine seeing that a couple of years ago. You simply wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, the over/unders are crazy these days. 9.5 these days, which is, I guess it's fallen since it's opened, but
yeah, I think it opened at 10.5. I see it 9.5 now.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just average these days, which is crazy because like a few years ago I looked at the average line and it was like 8. So I actually do like pitching on this game on DraftKings just because you got some affordable options. The over/under is not super high. Brault, not a great strikeout pitcher, but the lineup with Chase Anderson at the pitcher spot should be good for K's. He pulls up their average quite a bit because he strikes out half the time. And Brault is only 4,800, so I think that he could be a reasonable play tonight.
Adam, I said the same thing as Alex today on the strategy show. Like, Brault is 4,800, but again, that's like all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm getting the sum just because the mid-range, my projections for the mid-range guys just aren't that much higher than they are for Brault because it's just bad and in tough spots. There are some strikeouts here. No Christian Yelich in the lineup, even though it's lefty-lefty. That is still appealing for Brault. But like you said, it just comes down to the price tag. This is his first start back from the injured list. He threw 76 pitches at AAA on August 1st, so at least reasonably stretched out. So not really a concern there. And then on the other side with Chase Anderson, a really tough strikeout matchup against Pittsburgh, but there's just not really pitchers that are in good strikeout matchups that are good pitchers. So I do have interest in Anderson. I expect that probably 4 or 5 of the top 6 hitters in the lineup for Pittsburgh are going to be left-handed. Anderson's been reverse splits for his entire career, basically. This year, he's allowed virtually no power to lefties. He's been really, really good at getting lefties out. So I think that it's a reasonable price tag, especially on DraftKings.
Okay. Do you want to talk about hitters in this game?
Not really.
Nothing?
I mean, Milwaukee's fine. Like, Stephen Brault's still not very good.
I have some interest in Milwaukee with just some of the right-handed power here. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I'm also interested. I think there are some really good values. One that's really jumping off the page is Keston Hiura at 3,200 on FanDuel. I mean, a guy who does it all. Like, has big power, steals bases, and the matchup is good. So I think that's a really nice cash play.
Okay. What do you think of Manny Pena? Is it worth paying for him? I mean, I guess a decent price because he's batting 6th, or is the catcher position one that you'd probably just rather go lower? I mean, by the way, I know, if you want to talk about value on Yahoo, Yasmani Grandal is what, $11. So that's unfortunate that we don't have. Oh, we do. I'm sorry, we got both of them in the lineup today, right? Grandal batting or playing first. Yeah. So $11 for Grandal batting fifth. I know he's much better from the left side, but that's really cheap for him. Anything else, Alex, from either side?
Yeah, I like Grandal on Yahoo. Definitely in my cash lineup, so that's a good call.
All right. Let's move on. Boston, Kansas City. We've got Jake Junis, Andrew Kashner. Adam, Junis has allowed a lot of home runs this season, 24. Only Mike Leake on this slate has allowed more than him with 26. Kashner, on the other hand, hasn't. He's actually done a pretty good job of limiting power. He's clearly not a high strikeout guy, but, desperate times call for desperate measures. Are we desperate enough to look towards Andrew Kashner against the Royals?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think so. This Kansas City lineup just really drops off after you get through Merrifield, Gordon, Dozier, and Jorge Soler. Once you get to Cuthbert, O'Hearn, Starling, Viloria, and Nicky Lopez, you get some really questionable hitters there. Still some pretty good strikeout numbers, too, especially with O'Hearn, Starling, and Viloria. Kashner, not a great strikeout guy, like you said, but one thing that he does have working to his advantage compared to a lot of the other cheap pitchers is that he goes a bit deeper in the games. He's thrown at least 90 pitches in 9 of his last 10 starts, and the one where he didn't was 87 pitches. In his last 3 starts, he's gone over 100 pitches twice. When you compare that to guys like Chase Anderson, Jake Arrieta, Steven Brault, those guys are all really unlikely to get even to 90, much less 100 pitches based on how they've been used this year. So I think that that's one point in his favor, and then also it's just a more favorable matchup than Arrieta has against the Diamondbacks or Anderson has against the Pirates.
Okay. What about you, Alex?
I don't like Kashner, and I'll have to take the opposite side here. I think although Kansas City's lineup has some weak players at the bottom, it does have some stronger players like Hunter Dozier, Jorge Soler, and as a whole, like I have a kind of just slightly below average in both power, but also these guys don't strike out quite as much as your average team. So this isn't really amounting to a big fantasy performance, in my opinion, for Kashner. So there's some other guys I like on the slate more at a very cheap price point.
All right, and we will get to them in due time. Do you have any interest in this Boston team against Junis, knowing that he's very homer prone and it's at Fenway Park?
I think you just talked me into it. I mean, I think Boston is one of the best offenses in the game, and it looks like they might go overlooked today because they're priced up a little bit on the sites. So I'll definitely be looking to them in GPPs.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, really like Boston too. Junis doesn't miss a lot of bats, gives up a lot of power, and obviously Fenway plays really well for right-handed power in particular. So Mookie and JD stand out. Devers, I think, is a really good third base option, and then obviously you can just round it out with anyone else.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, how much of the price point comes into play for you, knowing that, as Alex said, it's going to suppress their ownership a bit, but at the same time, I mean, it's one of the best teams in the league facing a guy that coughs up so much power. Who, Kauffman Stadium's pretty neutral, but Fenway's definitely going to favor a lot of these righties, and righties have hit him pretty hard.
Yeah, and I think that because pitching is so bad on the slate, it's not really that difficult to get there because you can just play a cheap SP2, hope that they get you like 10 points, and move on.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Second highest top stack percentage goes to Boston. Highest goes to the Yankees. We've talked about both of these teams already. Do either of you have any interest in the Royals bats against Kashner?
I think Dozier and Soler in particular are both really good plays.
Alex?
I'll throw out some love to Ryan O'Hearn, who just
man.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten a go in this season yet, but a guy with pretty good power.
All right.
The prices are dirt cheap.
Alex, Tampa Bay and Toronto playing at the Trop today, the most poorly designed stadium ever. Jim Thornton is very inexpensive. He wasn't bad last time out, and he was super low owned on another bad pitching slate. You've got Ryan Yarbrough as your probable long reliever, or your long reliever for Tampa Bay. Any interest in pitching in this one before we get into bats?
I think Trent Thornton on DraftKings is on the fringe of being playable just because of that 5.4K price tag.
Agreed.
Yeah, the park's good, but the matchup is tough. So he might be worth a flyer if you really need someone at that price point. But this game is kind of amounting to be a Manny special for me.
All right, Manny special it is. Is this a Manny special for you, Adam, or have you found something in it?
No, pretty much. Like I'll get to a little bit of Yarborough on DraftKings, a little bit of Thornton also, just because he's so cheap. But nothing that I expect to make or break my night, and I'm not really interested in the bats either.
Okay. No bats for you either, Alex?
Oh, nah. I think Jesus Aguilar is a good one-off, as well as G-Man Choi, depending on the site. But
Yeah, I think Choi leading off is pretty decent, but
yeah,
not a priority.
for sure.
All right. Well, we'll keep going here. We're making pretty good time. Cleveland, Texas. Zack, Plesac, Urado. Adam, Plesac came into the league looking pretty decent, but the strikeout stuff has since suffered, and it's not really a huge surprise. And then on the other side of this, Ariel Urado, gets a decent amount of ground balls. He also seems like he's been a decent amount lucky this season too. And if you take a look at some of this, his X ISO against lefties and X WOBA way higher than his actual numbers. His X ISO and X WOBA against righties 360, 208, down a little bit from his actual numbers, but still really bad. And he just doesn't miss a lot of bats. On the opposite side, Plesac doesn't miss a ton of hitters either. I don't know. This kind of feels like a game. Josh and I discussed it this morning, where like ownership, maybe at least on Cleveland, feels like it should probably be a bit higher than it is.
Yeah, I think this game has weather concerns too, so maybe that suppresses ownership a little bit.
That could be the case, yeah.
But I think it's a really good spot for the Indians. They added, 2 right-handed power bats and Yasiel Puig and Franmil Reyes to go along with the good left-handed bats they already had in Lindor, Santana, Ramirez, Kipnis. It just makes this lineup a lot deeper. And Urado certainly hasn't been lights out against lefties this year, but he's really struggled with right-handed power. So I think that Puig and Reyes both stand out as good one-offs. And then you can full stack with, the other guys as well. Oscar Mercado always goes over-owned or under-owned among Cleveland stacks as well because he's pretty expensive. So I just think it's a team that has a lot of power now and a lot of different ways that you can attack it. As far as the other side goes, not the best lineup that Texas is running out. Unfortunate that they don't have Willie Calhoun in there because it would be a lot better lineup. Plesac really has underwhelmed since coming to the majors, though. Like you said, his walk percentage is about double where it was in the minor leagues. His strikeout percentage is below 20%. Texas still only has a 4.4 implied run total here, and I don't think that their pricing is overly appealing. So I don't think I'll get to a ton of Texas, but I'm not getting the Plesac either.
What about you, Alex, on both sides of this one?
I'll talk about the weather a little bit. I just posted from the Osmo weather account. I think this game is worth monitoring because the possibility of rain around 8 p.m. is fairly high. I'll just pull up the radar again. There's nothing super concerning on the radar so far, so this is one where I'll come back in about an hour and make a call. But I'm not terribly interested in the game just because Cleveland, they're a good offense and there's some good batters, as Adam mentioned. In the context of this slate, I think other teams like Boston and New York have a lot more firepower with today's slate, and the ownership looks pretty reasonable on those stacks, so I prefer those as my top plays.
Okay. Alex, Adam, do you want to add anything to this? Any other individual hitters you like before we move on?
No, I think in my initial crunch, it looks like Puig was my highest owned bat from this game.
Okay. Cincinnati and the LA Angels, Alex, Anthony DeSclafani and Jose Suarez. Totals in this one are, relatively high, but not really. I mean, Angels at 4.4 against DeSclafani at Great American. And then you've got the Reds. They opened at like 5.9. They're all the way down to 5.2. They are, relatively heavy favorites here. But then you also have a DeSclafani who's much better against righties. Ohtani's out of the lineup again, it seems. Goodwin's batting third. Is Calhoun out of the lineup as well? It looks like he is. So, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are a lot of righties in this lineup, and two of their best lefties aren't in the lineup. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think this is one where I'm going to look at bats, but perhaps maybe the ownership is too high. For pitchers, I see DeSclafani is getting ownership on all 3 sites. I mean, he's a good strikeout pitcher with 25% on the year. The matchup's pretty good because the Angels are playing interleague, and their pitcher Jose Suarez doesn't have any plate appearances in the majors or the minors. So I mean, that's a big question mark, but I have to assume he's probably not any good at batting, and that's a nice that's a nice bonus for an Angels team that has some pretty tough strikeouts. But the problem is, I mean, they have a 5-team total. And DeSclafani is kind of in the mid-range, upper mid-range of salaries. And there are just some guys at lower price points I like better as a value play.
All right. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I'm mildly interested in DeSclafani, definitely more than I was early in the day now that I've seen the Angels lineup. Their lineup has one of the highest strikeout percentages on the slate, the current one that they're running out there. And then obviously replacing Ohtani with a pitcher is really favorable for DeSclafani. Only 3 lefties in the lineup, and they're not the best lefties either with Goodwin, Tice, and Rengifo. Goodwin strikes out about 28%. Tice is up around like 38% so far in his major league career. And then Rengifo is at about 23. Max Stassi's a strikeout upgrade at catcher. Fletcher doesn't strike out, Trout doesn't strike out, Pujols doesn't strike out, but other than that, everyone in this lineup is a pretty high strikeout guy. So that certainly works in DeSclafani's favor. The ballpark doesn't. The price tag isn't the most appealing. 8,300 on DraftKings and 39 on Yahoo. I think it's playable, but I just don't think it's. I think that for the most part, roster construction wise, I'll end up paying up for one pitcher and then just going cheaper at SP2.
Okay. Now, with hitters here, I feel like I would have liked the Angels lineup a lot more, depending on who was in it. And the guys that I liked more aren't really in it. What are your thoughts on that lineup?
It's about as bad a lineup as the Angels could have run out there, I think. You still get some value with Brian Goodwin. I think is probably my favorite play from the Angels, other than obviously Trout. But Goodwin at 4,100 I think is fine. DeSclafani really struggles with lefties. Justin Upton's really cheap, but DeSclafani's pretty much lights out against righties. So it's a team that I'm just not really getting to all that much.
Okay. Are you getting to any batters you really like in this game, Alex?
I think there's a lot of guys that are really lighting up my value rankings. One in particular is Aristides Aquino on FanDuel and Yahoo, just super, super low price. He's a prospect that has pretty solid power, and he's batting high in the order. So for a real low price tag, I think he's worth considering in cash, but more likely GPPs. But the ownership on this game far surpasses the offensive potential, so I don't think that it's a great ownership play. You can make some nice projected lineups, but I don't think you're gonna be unique enough.
Okay. Yeah, right now we have the highest owned, or the 4th highest owned team, looking like it's going to be the Cincinnati Reds. On DraftKings, at least. Angels are up there as well. So I think that makes sense. By the way, Deeper Dive is the sign-up code, all one word, if you wanted to get half off, 50% off first month of membership at awesemo.com, your Awesemo Plus subscription. We got ownership projections, the top stack tool. We reference it here on the show every day, all of them, the player projections as well. All of them designed and used every day by our boy Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. We got the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, all of the premium articles, and a lot of free stuff as well. So if you just wanted to sign up, make an account, and you're not ready to dive in yet, you can check out all of the free content, including our seasonal fantasy football stuff to get you ready for the drafts, free baseball content. We'll have free DFS content coming up this season as well. So not everything's behind paywall, but if you want to get access to the stuff that'll make you a clear, better player, as Alex Baker can attest to, Deeper Dive is the promo code, all one word, Deeper Dive, 50% off your first month at awesomeo.com. All right, boys, let's keep it going here. We're through 6. We've got, 9 to go. Detroit, Chicago White Sox, Adam. Hector Santiago's making a start, man. How about that? And it's against a really, really putrid Detroit Tigers team. Drew Verhagen on the other side will be making another start somehow. For some reason, he is still on the mound. But, you've got, one – I think you have one lefty in this entire Detroit lineup against the lefty. They are still terrible against southpaws, but they've got 8 righties. And then on the other side, the White Sox, a pretty balanced lineup here against Verhagen.
Yeah, I think that there's some pretty solid value in this game because both pitchers are so bad. Maybe you get it being a little bit higher owned than it should for two offenses that are as terrible as they are. But right now, a 5.4 implied run total for the Tigers, 5.2 for the White Sox. Lots of really cheap bats here. Looking at the Tigers, their most expensive hitter on DraftKings is Brandon Dixon at 4,100. Other than that, Jacoby Jones at 3,500 is their second most expensive guy. The White Sox also have one hitter. They have Leury Garcia at 4K. No one else is even at 4K. So just two really, really cheap offenses on a slate where if you can find a way to pay up for two pitchers, that is not a terrible way to go against two pretty bad pitchers. So I think that John Hicks is a pretty clear cash option at catcher, 2,800 on DraftKings. I think that Jacoby Jones is viable in cash. I think Jose Abreu is a good cash option, as is Eloy Jimenez.
What about you, Alex, looking at a game with Verhagen and Santiago on the mound? Two bad offenses, both of which strike out a lot, but two underwhelming pitchers as well.
Yeah, this is a game I'm looking to in cash as well, more than GPPs, because there are such great value options. On my Yahoo cash lineup, I have 3 White Sox players right now. Or wait, I guess that might have been sorry, that might be incorrect. On Yahoo, they're priced up. On some other sites, I got a bunch of White Sox. The matchup versus Verhagen, I mean, this guy is a below-average pitcher, so and the over-under in this game is 10.5. The prices aren't really adjusted for that, so I think that just every batter in this game is grading out as a plus value for me, which is a great sign for cash, where the goal is optimizing your points per dollar, but in GPP, that's not my preferred approach, so I probably won't have a ton of these guys.
Yeah, right now, ownership on DraftKings. The two highest owned teams are the White Sox and the Detroit Tigers. The two highest teams. It's a lot different on FanDuel, and it's a lot different on Yahoo. But yeah, on DraftKings, both of the teams in this game are, Chicago and Detroit are 1 and 2 respectively in ownership. The White Sox, 15.5% ownership. Top stack percentage is 5%. So I don't know. It seems like maybe on DraftKings it's not the best spot to go, Alex.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, 15% ownership is kind of insane.
On a 15-game slate, too.
I just noticed this game, I guess it's not on FanDuel, so if you're looking for these guys, you're out of luck. But
no wonder it was much lower on FanDuel.
yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, we even talked about it today on the morning show, because yesterday DraftKings left the second game of a doubleheader off. FanDuel and Yahoo had it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like DraftKings tries to join the party, and FanDuel and Yahoo are like, yeah, we're leaving early. So I don't get it, but that's the way it is. All right. Are we worried about weather here?
Let me pull.
I know there was something earlier, but
I looked up the chance of precipitation for every game, and it was low except for Cleveland, so
okay,
that's what I'm going with.
Sounds good to me then. Adam, you want to add anything before we move on?
Nope.
All right, sounds good to me then. New York Mets, Miami Marlins. Zach Wheeler, Yamamoto. Is Zach Wheeler your top pitcher today, Adam?
Yeah, and it's not particularly close. For one on Yahoo, he's $43, which is just like an egregious price tag here. But even at 10.6 on DraftKings, and I think he's 10.7 on FanDuel.
Yeah,
10.7 on FanDuel.
Yeah.
Still just the best spot for me. Miami's lineup has a ton of strikeouts in it today. They called up one of their top prospects in Isan Diaz, and he's got potential, but he's also a high strikeout guy. Garrett Cooper will strike out. Lewis Brinson's a 30% strikeout guy. Alfaro's a 30% strikeout guy. You get the pitcher in the lineup. It's a really, really good spot for Wheeler. He threw 87 pitches, I think, in his 88 pitches in his most recent start. So he's 2 starts removed from the injured list now. I wouldn't think that, I would expect him to get back over 100 pitches like we were used to before his injury. Great spot, again, and not like there's a lot of opportunity cost in the mid range. So Wheeler's my top pitcher, and it's not particularly close.
Is he your top pitcher as well? And I agree with you, Adam. Is it your top pitcher as well, Alex?
Yeah, I think he's the cash game pitcher of the night, certainly, and the value is pretty good. I see on Yahoo we have him predicted for 58% ownership because he's only $43, which is a little bit of a cause for concern, but usually I find that a little bit more reasonable for like a high value pitcher versus high owned batters. So I often find when a guy's like 50% owned as a pitcher, I'll have him like even more than that.
All right. What about is Yamamoto on your radar at all, or is it just unnecessary tonight?
It's Hector Noesi now.
Sorry?
It's Hector Noesi pitching.
Oh, okay.
For the Marlins.
Huh.
Yeah,
MLB had it as Yamamoto like an hour ago.
Noesi is only on Yahoo, it appears, and he's only 25, so that's kind of interesting. But actually, I guess because Yamamoto was the projected starter, like all of the Mets players are super low price compared to the matchup with Noesi. So this is one of my cash game plays of the day. I have 3 Mets on my Yahoo team.
Okay, on your Yahoo cash team? Okay, yeah. Interesting. What about you, Adam?
I'm interested in Mets bats here. I'd be more interested in Mets bats if they didn't just run out like the worst lineup imaginable. No Michael Conforto in the lineup certainly weakens it. And then the bottom here, like 6 through 9, it's Guillermo, Echeverria, Lagares, and then the pitcher. So it really thins out after Todd Frazier, and that makes it less appealing. I still think that Jeff McNeil, Peter Alonso, Ramos, and Davis are good plays.
All right. We don't have to talk about Miami hitters, right? We can move on.
Yeah, but I would say that if you need a cheap bat in tournaments and you don't have Wheeler, you can go to Diaz. Like, he actually has potential as a hitter. And on DraftKings, he's second base shortstop at $2,900.
Okay. Well, we've got the Cubs and we've got Oakland. John Lester on the mound facing Brett Anderson. Alex, this is a really difficult spot for John Lester. I mean, the Oakland Athletics against lefties, against righties this season, not only have they not been great, but they've actually been pretty bad. Against lefties, they have the lowest strikeout rate in the entire league on their active roster. Their WRC plus is 122. It's second best, and they've got a 223 ISO. So, I mean, this team has certainly been very powerful against lefties. It's no surprise why. Who's their only good lefty? What, like Matt Olson? Jurickson Profar doesn't really count. It's a really tough matchup for John Lester. The reason I say this is because John Lester on this slate is actually projected to get considerable ownership given the matchup. Which side of this do you find yourself on?
Yeah, I find that surprising as well. I mean, I do like the fact that Oakland is playing interleague, so you have Brett Anderson in the lineup at the 9 hole, which is a significant downgrade from who would be in an AL game. But this is a lineup that's pretty tough, above average in almost every category, despite the fact that Brett Anderson is in. So I don't think the matchup is great for Lester. But the price tag is even worse just because it's kind of putting you in no man's land where he's like too expensive to really get you a lot of high price bets. But he's just too expensive to pair with like a Wheeler because then you're spending so much at pitcher. So I think it makes a lot more sense to go for like a cheap pitcher as your SP2.
Okay. mean, Adam, Chris Davis isn't in the lineup, but at the same time, they do have a good amount of quality right-handed bats here. What are your thoughts on this matchup between Lester and the righty-heavy A's?
Yeah, he grades out better for me than I expected him to because it is a tough matchup. Having the pitcher in there certainly helps. And there are a couple of guys that will strike out. Chapman has a 25% strikeout percentage. Pinder's just shy of 25%. And Garneau's at 22.5%. But still just not a lot of strikeouts here. It's really similar to DeSclafani, where I think that like Lester and DeSclafani are probably or are two of the better mid-range pitchers. It's just that they're not good enough that I really want to sacrifice the salary. I'd rather just spread my exposures out among like the cheap SP2s and hope that one or two of them come through.
Okay. Do you have interest in Oakland then?
No, not really. Matt Chapman's really cheap, so I think you can go there. And so is Piscotty, but it doesn't look like great hitting conditions. It looks like it's about 75 degrees with the wind slightly blowing in. Lester's a pretty decent pitcher. I mean, this year he struck out 23.5% of righties. He's allowed a 178 expected ISO, 318 expected WOBA. Just not a spot that I'm really looking to attack on this slate.
Okay, Alex, what about bats from the Chicago side against Brett Anderson? It seems like a pretty appealing spot, if for the only reason being some of these bats are really inexpensive, and I thought that would be reflected more in their ownership, but it isn't.
Yeah, I think that there are some standout options. The one I'm really zeroing in on is Nick Castellanos, who's batting second, just at a lower price point than the rest of the team, and he's an excellent hitter. So I like that in cash or as a one-off. But some of the guys are priced up a little bit too much on each site. Anthony Rizzo, lefty. Particularly is hard to stomach paying $4K plus for in a on a day with a lot of excellent options. And the ownership doesn't look like it's super low on the team, so I think it could be an interesting contrarian play to stack up Chicago, but probably not one of the top ones of the night.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was seeing like a couple guys that were higher owned, but as a team, it seemed they were pretty low, at least on the top stack tool. Maybe not crazy low, but what, 3%?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Adam, what are your thoughts on this team with a lot of righties, cheap Castellanos? Alex already mentioned him. Bryant, Rizzo cleanup, and then you've got the guys that have performed pretty well against lefties, and Almora and David Bote batting 6th and 7th. Any interest from top to bottom on this Cubs team?
I was kind of surprised in my initial crunch that I didn't get more Chicago, because Castellanos and Chris Bryant in particular are such good plays. And then, Baez is a really high upside guy. You have some value with Almora and David Bote. So I thought I'd get more Chicago than I did. Maybe in my final crunch I'll get there. But as of right now, I just didn't really get to a lot of full Chicago stacks.
Okay. Minnesota and Atlanta's got Jose Barrios and Mike Foltynewicz on the mound. Adam, Folty's been a home run machine this year. I think it would only be fair to point out that since being sent to AAA, he's actually been very, very good at AAA. Take that for whatever it's worth. It might not be much because at the highest level of baseball with the Braves this year, he was terrible. But yeah, it did seem like he, or at least it appeared that he may have improved a bit down at AAA. Was very, very solid, and didn't allow any home runs, which was his biggest issue this season when he returned from the IL. Let's talk about him first, and then we can get to the overpriced Jose Barrios.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a tough matchup for him to come back to. The Twins have a 5.6 implied run total. Really good lineup, not a lot of strikeouts, tons of power. CJ Cron is their 9 hitter. That is pretty insane, especially when you look at the guys above him and there's no glaring holes where he should be. Just kind of goes to show how good this lineup is, how deep it is. Foltynewicz, the ground ball percentage was a little bit better at AAA once he went down there, but still not striking out a bunch of guys. Even at AAA, a 20.7% strikeout percentage this year. Just seems like he's a long way away from last year when he was striking out 27%. So even though he's cheap, I'm not really looking to get to him. I'm not getting to a ton of Minnesota either, though, just because they are expensive. And I think it's a spot where you can pay up to be contrarian. But I assume that Foltynevich's actual talent level lies somewhere in between what he did earlier this year with the Braves and what he did last year, which would make him kind of just, like a middle of the road pitcher, and you're paying like maximum salaries for the best hitters on the Twins.
Okay, what about you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, Foltynewicz has been having a rough season in the majors, going 2-5, but in the minors he went 5-1.
Yeah,
So when
and he gave up no power at all.
I'm just joking around, like the win record.
Oh, you're talking about it. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I just heard you say in the minors he did better. Well, it wasn't just his record, though. Wasn't he actually good?
Yeah, he did. I mean, but his xFIP was 5, which is that's definitely not a good sign. And the strikeouts are way down this year, so I'm not really considering him tonight.
Oh, I have no interest in playing Foltynewicz whatsoever. If anything, I would be heavy on Minnesota. I just thought it was worth pointing out that he wasn't absolute garbage at AAA.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, as Adam said, there's reason to believe, he's a lot better than his statistics this year, and the AAA statistics are decent. So I'm not over the moon on either team here. I think that stacking against Foltynewicz does have an interesting ownership component to it, because they're priced up pretty high, and the ownership's going to be really low. So you gotta like that.
What do you make of Barrios, who's very expensive pretty much everywhere?
Yeah, just way too expensive. Like, not even in the ballpark of being playable, in my opinion. He's an average strikeout pitcher. The Atlanta lineup is significantly above average in both power, getting on base, strikeouts. So there's just really no reason to pay more than $10K for him.
Do you agree, right, Adam?
Totally forgot he was on the slate.
There you go. What are your thoughts on hitters?
I mean, Minnesota is interesting, but again, they're just so expensive that it's tough for me to get there. And as far as Atlanta goes, I mean, I do respect Barrios' ability to limit runs. It's just that I think he's overpriced for his strikeout stuff. Atlanta's lineup's also pretty ugly. Not dealing with some injuries, but you get to Matt Joyce, Charlie Culberson, and Ciarte at the bottom. It's just not the most appealing spot.
Okay. Well, do you have interest in hitters here, Adam or Alex?
Yeah, I think the Minnesota stack might be my anti-optimizer play of the night, because, as Adam said, it's tough to get to them, but they have above a 5% chance of being the best team of the night, which kind of indicates that if you can fill out the rest of your roster with some good value plays, like, you might have a good lineup.
All right. I guess that'll do it for this one. We'll talk about Houston and Colorado, Alex. Zack Greinke, Herman Marquez. Greinke recently acquired by the Houston Astros. So it's his first start with the Astros. He definitely bolsters this starting lineup or starting rotation. Normally paying for him is not a great thing to do because he isn't the greatest strikeout pitcher. But what do you make of him on this slate where, the Rockies have a microscopic implied total? It's 3.3. They're huge dogs on the road, and there isn't a lot of great pitching. Are you willing to look to Greinke against the Rockies team that's bad away from Coors Field, or would you rather look elsewhere?
Yeah, the only real negative I have on Greinke is that the Rockies lineup here, since they do get the designated hitter, doesn't have a ton of strikeouts in it, but it's also a pretty bad lineup. No David Dahl. Once you get past like the top 4, you get to some pretty questionable hitters. And Greinke's a good pitcher. Very, very low walk percentage. Not the best strikeout percentage, but you don't really have anyone with great strikeout stuff on this slate. So I think that he's a good play. It's just that I would rather find the money for Zach Wheeler where I can. I think that there's certainly merit on the 2-pitcher sites or I guess on DraftKings specifically, because on Yahoo, he's really close in salary to Clayton Kershaw. On DraftKings, I think there's probably merit in cash to trying to get Wheeler plus Greinke, and especially because there's so much value in that Detroit game. But yeah, like he's my second or third favorite pitcher on the slate. It's just that I still like Wheeler a lot more, so I'll still have a lot more Wheeler.
Okay. Do you have any interest in Greinke, Alex?
Yeah, I think so. I agree. Wheeler is the better play. But as you mentioned, the run total is just microscopic for Colorado, and the strikeouts aren't going to be that easy to come by, but there's a pretty good potential that he turns in a performance with a low amount of runs, maybe like 6 strikeouts or something. So, let me see how many I have him for. It's always like an X factor being traded to the Astros because somehow they just make good pitchers
Everyone
and the
good?
great ones. Yeah.
Yep. You see what Aaron Sanchez did the other day? I mean, ridiculous.
I don't think Greinke will actually get better though. Like I think he'll just still be what he is.
I mean, probably.
He's just like not the kind of guy that they generally will be able to turn around.
Alex, do you have interest in? I mean, I don't really think do we need to talk about Herman Marquez? He's been a lot better away from Coors, but it feels like he's not even cheap enough against a really bad Houston or a really great Houston team.
I think that on FanDuel he might be playable, but this definitely is a tough matchup. Talented pitcher, but it's just like an abysmal strikeout matchup in particular. I have them striking out about 25% less than an average lineup. But I do like that 8K price tag on FanDuel and 33 on Yahoo. Just kind of underpriced for his talent level.
Adam?
Yeah, I wrote him up specifically for FanDuel and Yahoo in the deep dive today. He has the best xFIP on the slate. He's $33 on Yahoo. He's 8K on FanDuel. Obviously, it's a really tough matchup against the Astros, but he's considerably cheaper than the only pitchers that are in his talent level on the slate. So I think that accounts for the matchup. Outside of Coors, since the start of last year, he has a 26.5% strikeout percentage. He's a really, really talented pitcher. So I'm not interested in 9,300 on DraftKings, but I could see getting there on FanDuel or Yahoo.
Okay. Do you have any interest in looking at the bats from this game? It's 2 really solid pitchers.
Nope. If I did, it would be the Astros, just because they're such a good lineup. But
what about you, Alex?
Yeah, same. I mean, Houston might be like a super deep contrarian play, but probably not giving you the best chance to cash in a tournament.
Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree. There are plenty of better places to go on this slate. I don't know, Alex, this next one I do have some interest in. Mike Leake, Jake Arrieta. By the way, Gabe Kepler has basically stated that he's not going to throw more than 70 pitches anymore because of the bone spurs in his elbow. We saw that last time out. It appears that they're going to stay pretty tight with this unless he says he's feeling better, but it doesn't seem that's been the case. And he's clearly beginning to wear down in these later innings as well. So I would expect to see no more than 70, 75 pitches for Arrieta over the rest of the season. Mike Leake, on the other hand, has allowed more home runs than anyone on this slate. He hasn't been terrible this year, but when he is bad, it's all by way of the long ball. And I think what's pretty remarkable about him is he has thrived at home at T-Mobile Park. He's allowed only 5 home runs there. He's allowed 21 home runs on the road. And while Chase Field isn't Coors, it's definitely not Seattle either. Do we have any word on the roof yet?
It's closed.
It's closed. Yeah. I don't even care if it's open or closed. It's still a much better spot for opposing offenses against Mike Leake than T-Mobile is. What are you doing with this game, Alex?
I think that this one might be another Manny special for me. I mean, 9.5 over under is somewhat appealing, but the teams are both priced up pretty high. And as far as my top value metric, both teams ring in at 1%, which is far less than average. So I'm not really getting anyone here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming I like this game more than both of you guys do. I just don't believe in either pitcher. I don't believe in the Phillies bullpen even remotely. So if Jake Arrieta, who has struggled mightily against lefties, is going to be facing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lefties, probably get knocked around early, and then enter, Juan Nicasio or whoever they decide to bring in out of the bullpen that isn't good. Adam, is this a Manny special for you as well?
Pretty close to it. It would be easier to convince me to roster the Diamondbacks than the Phillies, just because, like you said, you have a pitcher that struggles with lefties and is pitching with bone spurs in his elbow. So a lot could go wrong pretty quickly. The problem is just that the Diamondbacks are kind of expensive. So like in my initial crunch on DraftKings, out of my top 150 lineups, I got a 5-man Philly stack, and I got 1 5-man Diamondbacks and 2 4-man Diamondbacks. So just don't think I'll be getting to a lot of this game.
All right. Are you getting any Mike Leake then? If you're getting no Philly, or is he too expensive?
I really hope not. I didn't even check.
Hey, gotta ask, man. If there's no bats here,
it looks like I got 1% Mike Leake too. So
I knew
just
it.
taking some massive stands on this game.
All right, sounds good to me. Alex, anything else to add, pitching, hitting, before we go to the next one?
Probably another Manny special. I guess if I had to pick one play from this game, it might be the Arizona stack, because they have about an average chance of being a top stack tonight, but the ownership is pretty low.
Okay.
I think David Peralta's price tag really stands out on DraftKings.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Adam, San Francisco and Washington, Anibal Sanchez and Connor Menez. Is there any pitching here that you're willing to consider in a good park?
Both of them, but so Sanchez at 8K. I don't really want to get to that price point all that much, as I've kind of already said with Lester and with DeSclafani, but it's not a good strikeout matchup, and Sanchez isn't a good strikeout pitcher, but he does get 59-degree weather in the best pitchers park in baseball, and that can do enough to help with run prevention, as opposed to DeSclafani pitching in Great American or Lester facing the Athletics. So I'll get to some Sanchez. And then for Connor Menez, he's got good strikeout stuff. He's got a pretty tough matchup here against the Nats. Just not a lot of strikeouts at all in this lineup, with the exception of like Nat Adams and the pitcher. But he's $25 flat on Yahoo. And then even at 7,200 on DraftKings, I think there is enough of a discount there from that Sanchez DeSclafani tier that I'll probably get 10 to 15%.
Okay. What do you see yourself doing with this game, Alex? Between one pitcher we really don't know a lot about. The other ones, and Sanchez has been pretty serviceable this season. He gets a park boost. A bad Giants team, but you're not really getting a discount on him either.
I like going to Menez on all 3 sites tonight. I think that the results so far in the minors this year have been really inspiring for fantasy relevance, because he averaged 30% strikeouts in Double-A, 34% in Triple-A. So that's adding up to like high 20s in percentage in the majors, and you have a really good park. The park itself probably adds a couple of points to projection just because of the run prevention of being in San Francisco. And the price tag is reasonable on all the sites, especially on Yahoo, where he's 25. He even made my cash game lineup in Yahoo just because of that insane value. On FanDuel at 6K, just underpriced compared to his talent level. The matchup is not terrible for strikeouts because Anibal Sanchez is a pretty easy K. And then you have a few guys like Matt Adams, Victor Robles, Juan Soto, and Brian Dozier, all above 20% strikeouts. So this is adding up to a pretty good situation for me. On the other side, Anibal Sanchez is priced up a little bit higher, having projected about the same. But the Giants lineup is about average for Ks. The run prevention should be good, though.
Okay. Adam, do you have any interest in hitters?
No. If I had to go to one side, it would be the Nats, just because they do have 1 through 6 really good hitters, but it's still San Francisco. It's still a slate with a lot of really bad pitching that I can target in better parks.
Okay, Alex, what about you? Any bats? Obviously not a good park, and both pitchers are at least good enough.
Yeah, more interested in pitchers, but Brandon Belt at 11 and 3,600 on DraftKings. I think maybe he'd be a good one-off because no one has any of these players.
Okay. Well, we've got 2 games to go here on this 15-gamer. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, by the way, is the sponsor of the Deeper Dive and a lot of the shows here at awesomemode.com, and we appreciate them for that. If you haven't tried them out yet, I think it's a perfect time to do so. And a very easy way to do so is by just checking out the Spotlight Hitters article on the homepage at awesomemode.com. The Yahoo link is right at the top of it. We can't post it in the YouTube link anymore for some reasons that we don't need to get into. But, yeah, it is right there at the top of the article. If you click that, You could get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, those YSRPs. Use them on the site. They're good as cash. Play money, win money, and then withdraw it if you please. There's no MME. There's no 150 max entries, 10 max on all of the contests, even the biggest ones that they run out for PGA, for NFL, and for baseball. And they have zero management fee contest if you get there early enough. And even the non-0% management fee contests are some of the lowest in the industry. So that's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Check it out. Go to the Spotlight Hitters article right on the homepage, awesemo.com. It is free, and click the link when you sign up to get your $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. All right, fellas, 2 to go. Dodgers, St. Louis, Adam, Miles Michaelis, Clayton Kershaw. What are you doing with Kershaw here on a night where you pointed out that Wheeler is your top pitcher and it's not very close?
I'm probably still not getting into a lot of Kershaw just because of the price difference. On DraftKings, it's pretty substantial between Kershaw and Wheeler. On FanDuel, it's like $600. So still a difference there. And then on Yahoo, it's $3. So I think that it's probably the easiest on Yahoo to get there, but between Kershaw and Greinke. On Yahoo, but Wheeler I have projected as the top pitcher on the slate by a pretty wide margin. I'm not really that interested in paying more for Kershaw when I think that he projects not as well.
Okay. Do you feel the same way, Alex?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as much as I want to roster Kershaw for old time's sake, the prices are like really, really high given his production this year. I mean, 11.8 on DraftKings, 11.3 on FanDuel, like. That's priced like he's pitching in 2016, and I mean that's pretty hard to stomach in a GPP format, which kind of punishes you for spending all your money on pitching.
Do you have any interest in bats, particularly Dodger bats against St. Louis?
I think if the Dodgers, they haven't released their lineup yet, I believe. Oh, they did actually. Never mind. Well, I'll have to update all my stuff, but. I like Jock Peterson leading off. He's in my cash game lineup on Yahoo at 9, and he's well priced on the other sites as well.
Adam, what about you for hitters in this one?
Yeah, I like the Dodgers quite a bit. They are pretty inexpensive. Cody Bellinger is priced appropriately, but outside of that, no one above 5K on DraftKings. Alex mentioned the Jock Peterson price tag on Yahoo at $9. You have Seager at 12 as well. Pretty reasonably priced over there. And on FanDuel, Jock Peterson, 3,100 leading off. The whole team's pretty cheap there with the exception of Bellinger too. So Michaelis is a decent pitcher, but he's not someone that I really shy away from, especially with left-handed power. He's allowed a 181 expected ISO, 348 expected WOBA, and only has a 16% strikeout percentage. So the only real negative I have to say about the Dodgers is that with Alex Verdugo on the injured list, the bottom of the order is not quite as appealing, but 1 through 6 is still really strong.
Okay. Any interest in St. Louis against Kershaw?
No.
Okay. Alex, I'm assuming you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, on the nice slate, maybe on DraftKings, there's a couple of guys you could go to, like Jose Martinez and Paul Goldschmidt, who are reasonably priced, but it's pretty far down on my priority list.
Okay. Let's close it out. San Diego and Seattle. I mean, Alex, you have the righty for the Padres in Lamet, who is a pretty decent pitcher, but he hasn't pitched deep into games. He has pretty serious platoon splits for his short career. But it's also a Seattle team that strikes out at an astronomical clip and isn't very good. What do you see in this one? Who has the advantage, if anybody?
I do like going to Lamet, especially on FanDuel and Yahoo, where he's priced much lower than DraftKings. This is a guy with a lot of strikeout potential. I mean, he's struck out 31% of batters so far this year, a little bit higher than I have him projected. But as you mentioned, Seattle is a pretty good matchup for strikeouts. I have them a little bit above average tonight. And the price tag of $6,500 on FanDuel is egregiously low for the amount of strikeouts you can get. I mean, going deep in the games is a big question mark. So I wouldn't count on that, but you're getting a lot for your buck here.
What do you think, Adam?
I agree. The price tag on FanDuel is really appealing for the amount of strikeout upside that Lamet has. It's a good strikeout matchup against a team that strikes out a ton. He has one of the highest strikeout percentages on the slate. Granted, he's only made like 5 starts this year, but we know from his time with the Padres a couple of years ago that he has really good strikeout stuff. It's unfortunate that there are 5 lefties in the top 6 here, but they aren't the best lefties in the world. It's a decent park to pitch in. I think he's okay on DraftKings also. It's just that we haven't seen him throw more than 88 pitches in any of his starts. And being someone that does strike out a lot of guys, he's not really the most efficient. So you are kind of limited as far as like how deep we can expect him to go into games. But I think he's one of the best strikeout spots on the slate.
Okay. Thoughts on the other side of this one, Adam, with, I guess, Whistler and LeBlanc?
I have interest in the Padres right-handed power. We don't have a lineup yet, but Manny Machado is affordable. Hunter Renfroe is really cheap, especially on FanDuel at $2,900. Tatis obviously is great, and LeBlanc's just not a particularly good pitcher. So you're getting a guy that doesn't miss bats, gives up fly balls against a ton of right-handed power for the Padres. So I like them.
Do you like anything from either side of LeBlanc or Padre bats here, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are some batters in this game that are standing out as pretty good values. Looks like we just got the lineup for Seattle, and Malik Smith is leading off. Okay. This is a guy that steals a lot of bases, and he's super cheap on DraftKings and Yahoo, so I like that, especially on the night slate. On the other side, for San Diego, we don't have a lineup yet, but Tatis is a guy with a lot of fantasy value, and Will Myers, if he's if he's in the lineup tonight, he's really inexpensive, particularly on Yahoo at $9. So I think there's some good individual plays in this game, but the ownership is going to be pretty high on the San Diego side, and I don't really like the park that much. The matchup is. Oh, I guess they did announce a pitcher here. They hadn't for a while. They announced Matt Whistler's, and it doesn't really move the needle for me a lot. But
well, he's opening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Whistler and then LeBlanc.
I see. That was weird. There was just no line on this game all day. So
yeah, I know. I noticed that as well. Yeah, I thought LeBlanc was actually expected to pitch, but it wasn't confirmed. I think now it is confirmed. Yeah.
Nice.
I think we're good to go on that one. All right, fellas. I got a couple minutes here. Our top stacks. Adam, who are your top stacks? Give me a handful. Give me 3 of them since we have 15 games.
Boston, Dodgers, and Indians.
Alex?
The Yankees, Boston, and my anti-optimizer play of the night is the Twins.
Yeah, I like that Twins call. I'm going to throw Arizona in there. I think there are some viable cheap bats that open it up, and I think this Philly pitching staff is certainly as bad as it can get right now. All right, well, that'll do it for us. We've got Live Before Lock coming up next. You won't want to go anywhere. They're going to take you from 6 p.m. to 7:05 Eastern Time. If you haven't thumbed up the video or liked the video yet, please do so. It helps us out a lot. It helps support the channel. NAltimo.com and all of us, and we greatly appreciate it. Subscribe, hit that notification bell as well, so you always know when new content's coming up next. Live Before Lock with Jake Harry, Chris Randone, coming up right after this. Good luck tonight. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow, the 3 of us, on a Wednesday.